Well, we're back at it today, so we're going to try and button up this front floor pan and probably get a start or finish the wiring on this thing. So I'd like to drive this car tomorrow, and that's kind of the last two pieces. Well, I got to bolt seats in too, but yeah, that's about the last things that are holding me up. So let's jump in and get this pan done. Alrighty, so where we finished off was the pan sitting in, fitting pretty nice and everything. I still am going to have to drill the holes for the pinch weld across here. And then I'm going to crawl under and mark the line where this tranny tunnel's coming down, and it's in here somewhere. And I'm going to mark a line on this floor pan, and I'm going to cut the pan just a little bit above that. And then I can draw the line on the tranny tunnel here and get that cut in, and then everything should just slide together. So yeah, we're not too far away, and we'll get this thing welded in today. Alright, so I went ahead, I got this pinch weld. I drilled a bunch of holes across there to fill with weld. I went ahead and marked, this is where my floor for the transmission tunnel right there, that's that line right across there. And after looking at this, I think I'm actually, so I don't have to get under by my gas pedal and stuff and trim. This is already cut off, and this should transfer right in to the same. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut just a little bit high on this, because the way your pen is, like this would be probably the top of the where the tranny tunnel comes in. So I'm going to cut it just a little bit high because this is going to spring in a little bit, and as it kind of moves out, it's going to go a little bit lower. So I'm just going to cut right below this line and kind of fit it in there and see where it goes. But if I do that, then I think I'm done. And all the shift linkage and everything, it's right behind all that stuff. So if I don't have to cut the main floor anymore than I have to, then it'll be a lot easier to work on this. So let's go ahead and snip this off and see what we got. Okay, so as you can see, there's a little bit of metal under here, and wherever it's wavy or whatever, I can take my little flap disc and sand it in and get the little highs and lows out of it. But yeah, I just left a little bit on there, so when this springs back in and goes under there, as it rotates down, it's going to get a little shorter. So with leaving a little meat on there, when it goes down in, it should be right about where it needs to be. And not that that's super critical, but we'd like it as close as we can get it. All right, so that worked out super good. Yeah, there's my line. I'm just buttered up, and it's, I mean, just barely wiggle this pan, and I mean, my gaps are right there. So we're fit right in there, and I can kind of manipulate it in and get it tacked in there. Front gap, it's looking good. There's a little bit of a wide gap up in that corner, but I'm not too worried about that at all. And as I kind of move things around, I might be able to fill that up just a little bit more. But yeah, I think the next step is tack this bad boy in. I just kind of noticed how this worked out. That left the access hole to my shifter that I've wanted. So I can get this piece put in there, and I'll get it trimmed to fit. So this is all kind of just coming right together. So yeah, I'm real happy. I want to make sure there's nothing I got to do to trim or do anything before I weld this in, that if I need to open this or do anything else before I put my filler piece in there. So I'm going to look at that real quick, and then if there's nothing to do, I'll start tacking her in. Alright, so I think before I weld this pan in, I'm going to trim this, clean that line up. I did a little trimming on my little cover here, and so what I'm thinking is I'm going to put a couple tabs that are going to come out. I'll cut that off, have a little tab behind it that's coming out, so when I put this panel in, it'll pretty much sit flush. And then there's going to be, I left this a little bit long, so it'll hang down, I don't know, well, you can see that line right there. It'll hang down that 1/4 inch or so, and then I'm going to do a tab on the back side, so it'll kind of sandwich in that, and then I'll just have a couple of screws that'll hold it in there. And when I put this on, I'll seam seal it or goop it all up so it doesn't leak. I mean, this is something that it doesn't need to be done, but I think for just, you know, in the future, if I want to pull this out of here, it'll make it a lot easier. So I don't know, just something I'm doing anyway. So but yeah, I think I'm gonna get this line here trimmed, and then I'll trim it across up here and get that roughed in to where once this pan's in, then I can just, all I got to do is kind of trim this and make it all fit. And so yeah, I think I'm going to do that real quick and move on. So that's just kind of balancing in there, but I got it trimmed and it fits right in. It's flush in there. And then you can see the little bit of overhang I'm going to have. So this will just kind of be a channel, and it'll just channel down over the floor pan once that goes in there. And it'll just kind of give it something to register off of. And like I say, I'll weld some little tabs on the back of this, but it'll have a full circle of sealant around it so that it's sealed up. But someday if I ever want to do that and pull that off, I can, and it's there. So but yeah, so now that's roughed in, so I'm going to move on to the floor pan and get it welded up, and then we'll come back, and I still got to trim some of the stuff on the top and do all the little tabs on the side and everything. So but let's go ahead and move on to the floor pan. Okay, so I went ahead and started getting this tacked in. It's fitting in there nice. So now I'm going to go and do these little welds down the pinch seam here. And to do those, I really love using these. They give you room for, you know, to get in and get your weld in your little holes that you drilled. So as you can see, that just, it pinches on each side of it, gets it as tight as you can. And even at that, I'll still take a little hammer and just kind of tap everything in, and just if there's a little booger or anything in there, but get them as flat and tight as you can, and then go ahead and zap them. So I went ahead and welded all the spot welds along this pinch weld here, and you can kind of see it's still got a little burn there, but that was my floor height, and there's another one up here. So our floor height is where the other one was. Yeah, now it's the time-consuming round and round and round, polka dotting and welding this thing in, but we're on the home stretch. Well, it took a little time, but we got this pan welded in. So yeah, it welded up pretty decent. Like I say, you're not stacking dimes with this, but this one welded in nice. The metal's a little heavier on the floor, so, and this pan was about the same thickness as the original. So now I can move on to doing this little cover, and that'll wrap up this front floor pan. So, but yeah, my pinch weld along there lined up nice. Everything's nice and tight, so I'm happy with this. So as far as the pan goes, we can cross that off the list. I just got to grind everything out and we're done. And there it is, just a little dusting with the grinder, just knocked the little lumps and bumps. I don't care to metal finish this or anything, it's a floor. So like I said, it'll get bed lined and seam sealed and everything. But no, I'm happy with it. It turned out as good as to be expected. It's a floor, it's solid, and yeah, we're gonna move on to this tranny cover now. So I know a lot of you probably passed up on your dream car because you know, maybe the floor pans, you know, it's like every one of these old cars needs floors in them. And I've tried to sell some stuff. I had a 64 Falcon that had just some pinholes on the driver's side of the floor. I mean, it was nothing, maybe a 4 or 6 inch square. The rest of the car was solid. And I had, I don't know how many people come out, and it just had too much rust for them. They didn't want to deal with it. And I mean, this isn't hard, you know, and it's like, you can get a really good deal on some really cool cars if you're not afraid to tackle something like this. And hopefully I showed that it's not that hard to do these. And I mean, there's a million ways to do this stuff, you know, and just use whatever skill level and stuff. And just, like I say, make sure it's safe and everything. But basically, you're trying to keep the water out from rotting your carpet and stuff. And I mean, between the seam sealers and bed liners and stuff, you'll seal it up. And these cars, you know, once you fix up your car, it's not going to probably sit in the elements like they have for the last 50, 60, or 100 years. You'll probably keep it in your garage. I mean, it's your pride and joy. So it's not going to get treated like it did back in the day, the way we treat our Honda Accords now. You know, I mean, we leave them outside. They're like a chainsaw. You get in, you drive the wheels off of it, and you just don't really do much with them. So these are probably going to be in your garage. You're going to wash them. You're not going to take them out in the real nasty weather, or maybe you will. I mean, that's kind of the point of having a car like this, is like, it's not going to be a show car, and I'm not going to care if it's out in the rain or a bird craps on it or whatever. It's like, it's user friendly. So but anyway, hopefully this takes a little fear out, and you can go out and get that car for $1,500 or $2,000. And like with this car, when I'm all done and I do these floors and roofs and quarters, I mean, I about triple the value of this car, because that's all the stuff people are afraid to do. So just in doing that little bit of metal work. So yeah, give it a try. I mean, you can't mess it up any worse. So, you know, it's like, if it's a rust bucket, then put some new metal in it, and you know, it's better than it was. So anyway, let's move on. Okay, so I got this hole all squared up as good as it's gonna get, and then I went ahead and I trimmed a bunch off of this piece here. I kind of changed my plan on it, so it's gonna sit, it basically sits in there flush. See if I can get it to balance. I had it balancing there. Kind of like that. Okay, so it's gonna sit in there like that, and I cut these little strips, and I'm gonna drill a couple holes there, spot weld these in behind so they give it a little bit of a lip, and it'll be a lip wide enough that one of these nut inserts, I think I marked this one out for it, so I want it to stick out far enough for one of these nut inserts to go in, and I'll just have to drill 2 holes, and then I'll have some screws that are going to go through, so there'll be 2 here, 2 here, and 2 there, and then this little panel will come out. Like I say, then that gives me a surface to goop this around so it's all sealed up, and if the time comes that I need to pull it out, I can. So I'm going to go ahead and get these little pieces fit up and drilled and put the nut inserts in. Alrighty, so I went ahead and I got this little piece made. I just drilled it and everything, and I've got my little nut insert in there. So there's this head thickness of that, and if I weld this just flush in the back of that, that head is going to make my panel that I want to sit flush stick out that little bit of thickness. So, and I showed these on my Le Mans, but these are just a flanging, they're basically vice grips with some jaws in them, and this little step puts a little, about a sheet metal thickness step in there, which should be about enough to offset that little head. So I'm going to go ahead and flange this all the way across here so that when I go in, when I put it in there, that this will sit flush and my panel will sit nice and flat in there. So let's crimp that in there. So as you can see, I'm just crimping that, and you can see the little step that it's putting in there. So it's just like vice grips. You just go along and just crimp this right along this edge, and it'll give me the step I need, and everything should sit flat. We're going to find out. So there you have it. It put a nice little step in there. This you can do if you have a bead roller, but these are just kind of handy for little things like this, and I just run along the edge there, and then put that nut insert in, and with that step, my camera will focus, but it's pretty much flat. So that's as good as I'm going to get for this. But yeah, it's a handy little tool to have, and it just does little jobs like this that kind of makes things a little bit happier. I don't know if that's focusing or not, but probably not. But anyway, let's get this first flange put in. So this is the nut insert tool. I think I did a video on that, but I got this through Amazon. It came with a bunch of these little nut inserts and everything, and it's basically like a rivet. So super easy to use. Your little insert, there's all kinds of different dies for different threads and everything, but you just simply screw your little nut insert that you get in there and squeeze this together, and that will pull, it compresses this, and it'll pull it down, and it crunches this thing and basically makes it like a rivet. It'll smush this together and pinches your metal, and then you got a nut insert in there. So it's super handy to have. Like I say, it's a cheap, real handy tool to have for stuff like this. So if you don't have one and you're doing this stuff, I'd highly recommend getting one of these. So here's a little before, and there's after, and you can kind of see how it smashes that down and pinches it in the metal there, and then it's got those little ribs on there that they grip so it doesn't spin. So it's a super easy, super handy little tool. So I got these nut inserts put in there, and then this is going to go behind here, and you can just line it right up on that little edge there, and yeah, I'll just weld, well, I'm going to drill a couple holes across here and spot weld this in, and then this will let my panel sit flush in there. So I'm going to do that all the way around, and yeah, that'll give me some good mounting areas for this little panel to go. So I went ahead and I drilled all my little plug welds. You can't hardly see them in here, but those are all drilled open. And then yeah, I got this set in there. When I drilled these, it's gonna leave a little burr on the backside, so it's like the only thing I could get in there was a little file, so I just filed off behind these so this panel will sit as flat as it can. Otherwise, them little burrs stick out quite a ways, so you just want this flat and tight. And it takes time, but it just makes things fit a lot nicer when you're done. So yeah, I think I'm ready to tack this thing in there. So I got that welded, and now this panel sits and it is nice and flush. So yeah, that little step, it's just an extra step, but it just makes everything fit a lot nicer. So yeah, I'm gonna do some more flanges up this side and that side, and then this is done. So with this little tool, you're just gonna, like I said, you thread this thing on there, and then I want to make sure I put it to my downside of my flange there. And actually, this needs to be open so that that'll. So here, I'll show you here. So when you squeeze this, it pulls that down, and so once it butts in, that's what squeezes this, and it just pulls that down and smashes it. So we want to thread this all the way down to there with the arms open. Slap that in there like that. Let me get it started here. There. And then, so that did the first little squish, and you can kind of see it starting to build that out. Tighten this little knob a little bit. Squeeze it some more. Kind of hard the way I'm doing this, but tighten that up a little bit. Squeeze some more, and you can see it's starting to get a little shoulder on it. And that's about it there. And now we are compressed and it's locked in there. And you just unthread this and slap her in. So I got all my spot weld holes drilled, and something that'll save you some time and a lot of having to file these little burrs off the back is once it punches through, just go real easy and let your cutter, I use this like a step bit, and just let it cut and don't push real hard, so it'll cut the metal away. If you're pushing real hard, it'll basically flare it and almost just push through there. So let it cut and do what it needs to, and you'll just barely have to get in here and do anything on the back of these. So that's just a little tip to save a little time. Alrighty, so we got this one zapped in, and I'm gonna make this one real quick, and then this is pretty much done. I'm putting a little flange that's gonna go in and go underneath this part here, and it'll still butt up here, but there'll be one underneath, and I might put one more little screw right there just to suck everything nice and tight. So but yeah, let's go ahead and get this side done. And we got the third one welded in. So now I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna make kind of the same thing, but this one's gonna go underneath here, and I might put one screw in there. I was thinking about just to kind of cover it. I just don't want anything vibrating, so I might put a little screw in that. But yeah, I'm gonna put that in, and that's why I kind of left a little gap here so it can go in and go underneath this stuff. So yeah, let's get that part welded on real quick. So I made this little tab, and I just did 2 little spot welds. I'll get those ground up. But yeah, that'll just give it a little lip to go right in under the top of that. And then while I was at it, I went ahead and drilled my holes. So I'm gonna bolt this in and see how it looks. And there it is. So it bolted in super nice. It is flush with the tranny tunnel. And yeah, I just got to clean up all my little spot welds around here. But yeah, I'm super happy with this. It's funny, this whole floor pan thing started with making this little piece right here. So, but it all kind of ties together. So I think it's overkill probably with all the little screws I put in there. I'm going to get some little button head Allens or Phillips or something to put in there so they're a little lower profile. That's just what I had. But yeah, that seals up the hole. My shifter's got all the room in the world to shift and everything. And yeah, so once I put a little goop, there's that butylene or butyl or whatever. I might put some of that in between there or something. That'll just seal this up so it's good. And If and when I ever need, I may never pull this off. I don't know. But while I was in here, I thought it's a good time to just make that an option. So super happy. But we can cross this floor off. And as I said before, this passenger rear, I don't know why there is not one to be found. But what I'm going to do right now, just to keep any water out, because it may rain on our weekend, which is not good for me. But I'm just going to probably just put a piece of plate in here and just screw it down real quick just to seal up any road mist or anything that might come off if we're driving this thing. So that's just going to be something kind of hack I throw in there just to seal that up for now. And when my pan does finally come, then we'll address that then. Pretty much same as we've done all of these. So that's it for the floors for now. And then I'm going to move on to this wiring harness and get these taillights going. And I did order, I've got a harness coming. I am going to put a full harness in this. I'm just over messing with this. So whatever I do to get this working is going to be rude and crude just for a weekend thing. And then I'll throw a harness in this and we'll just be done with it. So, but yeah, so another good deal. Glad this is done for now. Like I say, it'll be a couple weeks or whatever, and hopefully this pan, it says ships from the manufacturer. I think it's like May 29th or something like that. So, which could mean it could come by the 31st, 33rd, or it might take another month. I don't know. But for now, I'm just going to get something in there just to seal that up. So, yeah. But we're calling this a win. Well, I'm super glad to get those done. Yeah, they turned out great. I'm very happy with the way all this is going so far. It's been pretty simple. Like I say, just don't overthink this stuff and, you know, take your time on it. But yeah, we can cross that off. And I'm going to move on to that wiring. And then I think I'm hoping tomorrow I can drive this. So I'm going to stay out here late tonight and probably tackle this wiring. So yeah, that's the next step. But thanks for watching. We'll have more, and it's going to be wiring. So stay tuned for some spaghetti.